All right, two of the big things that people complain about, not necessarily complain about, but things that people say about the Fast Saga, myself included, I've said these things, is one, the titles are absolutely nonsensical, and two, the series has distanced itself so much from what it started as that it's not even really the same series anymore. It's something totally different. So today I want to look at both of those things a little more in depth, and rather than looking at it from the wider view of, now being at the ninth film and seeing everything all out at once, I kind of want to go through a piece at a time and talk about how the things, they kind of make sense in the moment. Even though now it seems ridiculous, in the moment you can see how it got from point A to point Z. And this is a thing that I think I benefit from because I hadn't seen any of the Fast and Furious movies until Hobbs and Shaw was about to come out. And then I watched the first 8. And so I had a very quick succession through them. So I could see the plots evolving and things like that. Whereas people that have been watching them for 20 years, if you don't rewatch them, if you don't revisit them, and you just kind of watch each one as it comes out, I imagine that it would be hard to lose the thread of what's been going on. So we're going to talk titles. We're going to talk plot. So let's start with the titles. And if you don't know, the title, The Fast and the Furious, comes from an old 1954 film. And they weren't remaking the film or anything like that. They had their own film. They had a couple other different titles that they were going to use. I think Racer X was kind of the front line for a while. But at some point, I think even after the movie was kind of done, they were getting ready to start marketing it. Somebody decided to change the title to The Fast and the Furious, and that seemed to fit the theme more. So they just took the title from this old movie and put it on the new movie. So that's where that title comes from, The Fast and the Furious. Then we get to the second film, and I think Too Fast, Too Furious is one of the greatest titles ever. It's great. It, obviously you've got the wordplay. It probably doesn't work as well in other languages, but in English at least, the Too Fast, Too Furious, it works well. The song Act of Foo that Ludacris did incorporates the song title, or the movie title, into the song lyrics. Fantastic. I think it's great. Quick note, Better Luck Tomorrow, which is not officially part of the franchise, but was Justin Lin's first movie, and it's the unofficial origin of the character Han. The title Better Luck Tomorrow refers to, according to Justin Lin, the idea that today's youth, there's so much expectation put upon them that they can't really live up to it. So it's like, well, better luck tomorrow. And if you've seen the film, it's about high school students who are so overachieving that they get bored and they turn to crime to spice up their lives a little bit. So now we get to Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And you might think that the first choice would be to call it Fast and Furious 3, right? You had the Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious. Fast and Furious 3 is the simple version, right? It's right there. But even though Dominic Toretto was not in Too Fast, Too Furious, Paul Walker, Brian O'Connor, he was. So it was still a sequel, even though it focused on mostly new characters in a mostly new location. It was still a sequel, so it made sense to use the two. But Tokyo Drift, until the cameo at the end, is not really a sequel. It doesn't follow those same characters. It doesn't continue the plot line. So calling it 3 would not be accurate. And so, it's pretty common nowadays for movie franchises to use subtitles. In fact, nowadays, studies show, or reports show, that audiences are more likely to see a film later in a franchise if it doesn't include the number. Because apparently if they see a number, they think to themselves, oh, well, I haven't seen all the ones before it, so I don't want to miss anything. So that's why things like How to Train Your Dragon didn't become How to Train Your Dragon 3, it became How to Train Your Dragon The Hidden World. We see this with the Thor movies, with the Captain America movies, with the Spider-Man movies, right? This is a pretty common thing. So the Fast Saga doing things like F9, that's actually kind of unusual now. So a subtitle makes sense. It's not really a part 3 in the story. It's a separate story in that universe. So Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift makes sense. Then we get to the fourth one. And I think this is the one that causes the most confusion. And literally, I just bought new copies of these movies a couple weeks ago. I had the 8-pack, but I wanted separate copies of everything. And there's an in-stand at Walmart that had these all up, all 8 of them. And 1 and 4 were in the wrong spot. They were switched. Because 1 is called The Fast and the Furious, and 4 is called Fast and Furious. So it certainly is confusing at this point in time. But at the time, Justin Lin was coming back as director, and it was a conscious decision to kind of restart the franchise, because the first 3 films are about driving. There's other things going on, which we'll get to when I talk about the plots, but they're really about driving and other things going on around the world of driving. And from 4 on, they're about other things, and driving is more a means to an end than anything else. So there was a conscious decision to kind of restart, some people call it a soft reboot, to restart this series. And so it makes sense if you're gonna, remake something or restart something, you give it a similar title. And there are other examples of this. We had Suicide Squad, and now we have The Suicide Squad. We had the original Halloween movie and the sequel to that, which is called Halloween, right? There's other examples of things like this. And when you really focus in on the point in time that the decision was made, it might not have been the most forward-thinking decision, but it did make sense at the time. So, Fast and Furious 4 may have been smarter long-term. I think that's what a lot of people call it now. But I can see where the idea of taking the original title and tweaking it a little bit, I can see where that comes from. Then we get to Fast 5, and, simplifying things, I think, makes a lot of sense. Because people don't want to say Fast and Furious every time. They don't want to say The Fast and the Furious every time. So, Fast 5, right? Then we can start referring to the older films. Fast 1, Fast 2, Fast 3, Fast 4. Fast 5 makes a lot of sense. Now, in the director's commentary for Fast and Furious 6, Justin Lin, which I believe at the time he made the commentary, the movie was just newly released. He refers to the film as Furious 6. And he says that the official name of the film is Furious 6, and the title card in the movie says Furious 6. And he says in the commentary that the posters and the marketing are wrong because they call it Fast and Furious 6. And he says that that is incorrect. The real name of the movie is Furious 6. Obviously, history has proven that to be not true. So the plan was to do Fast 5 and Furious 6, which makes sense. Fast and Furious, Fast 5, Furious 6. There's a rhythm to that I can follow. But according to him, the marketing team, it was decided that there was too much confusion by only having Fast and Fast 5 and only having Furious and Furious 6. People weren't really sure what they were getting into, so they really wanted to highlight the Fast and Furious brand. So they called it Fast and Furious 6. Again, in a vacuum, I can understand that decision. The franchise is known as Fast and Furious, and this is the 6th installment, so Fast and Furious 6 makes sense until we get to 7, and then we get to 7, and it's Furious 7. So we had Fast 5, Fast and Furious 6, Furious 7, and there was no director's commentary on my copy of 7, so I didn't get any insight into the titles there. All I can think of, though, is just that at that point, especially with what happened in the real world with the death of Paul Walker, there was so much attention on the film that they didn't need to label it as Fast and Furious. And so my assumption is that they took this concept of Furious 6 from the previous movie and just put it onto this movie. And they knew that people are going to know what this is because of all the real world talk about it. Then we get to number 8. And after a combination of numbers and subtitles, we get something totally different. The Fate of the Furious, which plays on the word 8 in the word fate. Similar to Too Fast, Too Furious, but Too Fast, Too Furious uses the number in place of the word, whereas Fate of the Furious just uses the word. So you have to kind of know the trick, right? If they had done F8 of the Furious, some people probably would have hated that more, but I think it would have fit more with what they had done before. So Fate of the Furious, to me, that's the one that's most of a stretch. But I like, I like puns. I like clever things like that. So I'm okay with it. Now we get to the 9th one, and it's just called F9. That feels lazy to me. I would have loved to see, Fast and Furious and Fine, or some kind of play on the word fine. Fine and Furious, Fast and Fine, right? Whatever. I did not get my way. So now people are speculating what 10 is going to be. I've heard people say Fast 10 your seatbelts. I've heard people say Fast 10 Furious. Obviously, you've got the option of using an X instead of a 10. So I think what's going to happen is it's going to be Fast X Furious. That's my official prediction moving forward. Although there has been some discrepancies between what the movies are called and what the title card says. So, as I mentioned with Fast 6, the title card says Furious 6. The movie is officially called Fast and Furious 6. With 7, the movie is called Furious 7 with the numeral 7. But on the title card, it's spelled out Furious 7, S-E-V-E-N. So, I kind of think officially the title card is going to say Fast X Furious. But I think people are just going to call it FXF, on Twitter and in shorthand and stuff like that, where you don't want to type everything out. So there might be 2 more titles, but I'm holding out hope that I'm going to be right. Fast X Furious. So the titles from this point look a little nonsensical. It's hard to follow them, and I pointed over to 5 when I was talking about 4 earlier. I don't know how to count. In this version of the releases, you can see the front has no numbering at all, just the title. The spine of the sleeve has the number 5 on the side, so that when they're on the shelf, they can easily be seen. But on the actual case itself, it's got the number down there in the corner. I think that's a really great way to do it. Obviously, if you get the 8-pack, they're just in order. But even though the titles now are a lot to keep track of, right? Which one's Fast and Furious? Which one's The Fast and the Furious? Tokyo Drift is technically the 3rd one, but takes place 6th, right? I get it. It's confusing, but if you look at each step individually, you can understand why they made each decision at the time, and maybe their biggest crime was not thinking enough ahead and how confusing it's all going to be once we're all talking about all of them at the same time. So, that's my rant on the titles. Let's talk about the plots. So, people either come at this at one of 2 ways. Some people say they're not even about driving anymore. They don't even show races anymore, right? Get back to the roots. Show us the street races. Or people are talking about these larger-than-life situations that they're in, and they're like, didn't they start off stealing DVD players? And, how did they get here from there? So, let's go through, and let's talk about how the plots and the amount of driving has changed throughout the film. So, first film, The Fast and the Furious. It's about the world of street racing, but that's not really the main plot. It's not the important plot. That's the world around the plot. So the plot is Dom and his crew are stealing DVD players. Brian is an undercover cop who's trying to get into that world to find out who is actually stealing those DVD players for the law enforcement agencies. So we see a lot of street racing, but really it's just to show us what these guys are capable of and let us get to know them. But there are heists, right? People ask nowadays, they're like, when did these movies become about heists? In the very first one, there are these heists where they hijack is not the right word, but they take over these semi trucks and they steal the DVD players from inside them, and it's a heist. So from the very first one, they've been about heists. They've just focused a lot more on the driving, so that you could see the personality of the different characters. Like Dom versus Jesse obviously have very different personalities in the race, and someone like Letty is going to be different, and someone like Vince is going to be different. So, and then you get, that's how Brian gets into the family, is through the world of racing. So we need that in order to... My Google is talking to me. We need that world of racing to further the plot of the DVD players, because that's how Brian gets in. So even though there's a lot more racing, it's not about the racing, it's about the heist. When we get to Too Fast, Too Furious, again, it's not about the driving, it's about this drug lord, right? Forget what his name is in the second movie. Whoever is hooking up with Eva Mendes. But they have to prove their driving skills in order to go undercover to catch this crime lord. And we see some of the races, because in the first one we really established that, like, Dom is the best, right? Brian wants to beat Dom. He can't do it. Dom is the best. So now we got to see, what can Brian do when Dom's not around? We got to see Roman and his skills. But again, these are for the purpose of something else. That's not the point. That's just the way that we get there. And so they use their skills. They infiltrate the organization. They take down the crime lord. They jump a car onto a boat. Like you do. Still about, it's not a heist this time, but it's about using your skills at driving for something else. Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. This one, it's really about the driving. There's no heist. There's nothing that they're trying to infiltrate. It's just about, what's his name? Sean, getting better so that he can beat this guy in a race. And, there are other things that come up with the Yakuza and with Neela and all this other stuff, but it's really about drifting and learning how to drift and learning how to drive and learning how to race better. So that is I think the purest driving movie. That's the only movie where it's about the driving for its own purpose and nothing larger in terms of the plot. Then we get to number 4. Fast and Furious. And this is where, like I said, they made a conscious decision to focus on this other direction and not show as much of the street racing scene. So here, the big plot driver is that Letty is supposedly murdered. And so Dom is out for revenge. Brian is working for the FBI. He's trying to, once again, take out this drug lord, Braga. Again, using his skills as a driver to get into his organization driving for him. And these two different people, Dom and Brian, are not working together, but they're both after the same guy. And they're both using their driving skills. But again, we already know that Dom is better than Brian. So when we see them race, we do see them race. And Brian, you could say he gets close. I almost had you. But we've seen this before in one. We don't need to see it again. And so I would theorize that the people that are upset that it doesn't focus as much on street racing anymore probably haven't rewatched the series very often, because you don't want to see the same thing in every movie. Most people don't want that. So if you associate the Fast and Furious movies as movies about street racing and you watch them once and then you don't watch them again, and then the next one there's hardly any street racing in it, it makes sense that you're like, why aren't these, what happened? But if you watch them all in a row, you don't want to see the same races in every movie. That's going to get boring. That's going to get repetitive. So we see some of it, but it's mostly about working for Braga, finding out who Braga is, and taking Braga down. Then we get the jailbreak, Fast Five. Now they're on the run from Luke Hobbs, and they want to take down the crime leader in Rio, Reyes. This one clearly is about the heist, right? They want to get the money from his safe, they want to take him down, and they're avoiding Hobbs. But again, they're using the skills that they have as drivers. So it's not about racing, it's about this heist. Just like in 1, but they are using the skills that they have as drivers. Now, a lot of people complain, in particular in 5, because there's a scene where they say that they're going to go race for cars, because they need cars, so they're like, let's go get some. And then they go, and then they cut away, and we don't see that. And a lot of people are like, why didn't we see that race? Because we know they're going to win. We know Dom is going to win. We don't need to see that, right? There's going to be no stakes in that race. Dom is the best, right? We've moved on from that at that point. So then we see them all racing the cop cars, and that's not necessarily about who's the best racer. That's to see them having fun. That's, again, to show off their personalities with people like Roman running the siren and everything. And then you get the little play with Dom and Brian, and Dom lets Brian win to get the extra $1 million to help with the new baby that's on the way. So even that, it's not about the race. It's about the family, right? That's what everyone says. So we've moved on from being about racing. Really, the only movie that was about racing was 3. The rest of them are about these other things where they use their driving skills for something else. Number 6, Hobbs, who has now come to respect them, comes and asks them for help because they're going up against someone with really great driving skills, Owen Shaw. And so they use their driving skills to help bring Shaw down. Number 7, his brother Deckard Shaw is out for revenge, so they're using their driving skills. But it's not enough this time because Deckard Shaw has too many advantages. So now we bring in the government side of it, right? With Mr. Nobody and this kind of dark ops stuff. And again, people have asked, like, when did they become government agents? Well, when you're going up against someone with the skills of Deckard Shaw, driving alone is not going to cut it. So they're still using their driving skills, but we need a little bit more now. That's 7. Fate of the Furious. Now we get the team against Dom. Obviously, he's going to use his driving skills. They're going to use theirs to try to stop him, but it's all about, getting these nukes and these things for Cypher, who wants them for her own purposes. So the people that say these movies aren't even about racing anymore, they were never about racing, except for 3. They were always about something else, and they just use their skills at driving to further that plot. And that plot has gotten more and more and more intense with each movie, but it's still just them driving really well for other purposes. That's what it's always been about. And if you think that it used to really strongly only be about racing, maybe you need to go back and rewatch some of the other films. It showed a lot more racing, but again, why would we want to see Dom just beating people every movie? That gets old and that gets boring, right? We want to see different things. At least I want to see different things. I don't want to see the same thing every movie. So, 2 rants, 1 video. That's my take on the titles and how, even though looking at them now, they seem ridiculous, I can see step by step how they got there. And the plots of the film, even though some people might think, well, how did they get from here to here? If you follow the progression through the movies, it does make sense. It is all one big thing. That's all I got. Thank you.